a long 30 seconds.
You can start, Mr. Berry.
Good evening and welcome to the Dearborn Board of Education regular scheduled meeting for May 11th, 2020. This is a virtual board meeting and we will call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Mary Lane here, Roxanne McDonald.
Here.
Michael Mead.
Here.
Adel Moseb.
Here.
Mary Petchlikoff.
Here.
James Thorpe.
Here.
President Hussein Berry.
Here. Next item, please.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Mr. Mahmoud Aburus, principal of Oakman Elementary School, will introduce students who will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dr. Maleko, executive directors, and to all of our audience. I hope that you are doing well and staying safe. I am honored to be with you tonight, virtually with you tonight, to introduce two wonderful Oakman students to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, I'm Hussein Bazi from Oakman Elementary in 5th grade from Ms. Musat's class.
Hello, I'm Naya Bazi from Oakman Elementary, 1st grade in Ms. Yanta's class.
Please put your right hand on your heart. Let's start the Pledge of Allegiance on 3. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We all hope to see you soon. Stay safe.
Even though it's virtual, they can still get the clap. Next item, please.
Superintendent's update, agenda items, retirements.
So before we get started with the agenda items, I do want to ask that we just take a moment of silence like we did last month. This moment of silence is to just send our condolences to all those who've lost a loved one during the current COVID-19 crisis. Please. Thank you. So I'll move on to retirements then. So for retirements, we have Edmund Bennett, 24 years of service. Timothy Bishop, over 7 years of service. Sherry Candia from Superintendent Department, 10 years of service. Janet Celesti, over 9 years of service. Tracy Conrad, 36 years of service. Scott Crawford, over 28 years of service. Shirley Gorski, over 24 years of service. Mary Hall, over 25 years of service. Jennifer Knaus, 31 years of service. She was my mentor teacher many years ago at Salina, I think the board's aware. Kimberly Lawson, over 25 years of service. Lisa Poma, 23 years of service. Carmel Atkins, 32 years of service. And Mary DeSantis, over 28 years of service. I want to congratulate them and thank them for many, many years of service, helping many students in the district. We could show our appreciation, please, virtually. They will receive cards from me, but because of the slowness of the mail system, we're doing a little more virtual. They're handwritten, but then they get scanned to the employees. That's the system we've developed during this crisis. So thank you. And again, congratulations to all of our employees.
Next item, please.
Non-agenda items, COVID-19 update.
So we continue to deal with the crisis and watch the reports from the governor's office. I've been directly engaged with the state associations, the Michigan Department of Education. In fact, I was on with Deputy Director Sheila Alice just today. And so we're monitoring conditions both locally and abroad as we deal with the crisis. I want to, really, again, thank our whole staff. I want to thank the board. I want to thank our staff that up. We have crisis meetings. There's all sorts of meetings that go on throughout the day, virtually via Google Meets, Google Hangouts. And the team continues to step up, whether that be the food service that we're providing, over 65,000 meals a day, online learning with our staff and our teachers and our principals, is going on constantly, and just anyone in need. So our staff is on hand and is available to the public. We have a website designated with information. As we are physically shut down, we continue to work and provide support to the community. So I also want to thank the parents and who have been teachers. And so I want to thank all the individuals in the community in Dearborn who has come together to support one another. So I just wanted to give that brief little update and just let people know that we continue to meet, provide support to the Dearborn community. And given the current crisis, we're excited about some of the innovative things that are going on instructionally as we continue to provide instruction for students, albeit not the same. We know it's not the same, but we will continue to work hard for the Dearborn students.
Great, thank you. Next item, please.
Budget.
So I'm just going to mention, we have Mr. Wall in the building. I believe he's in his office, but I won't have him come. I'm just going to mention that we continue to monitor the budget. Obviously, everyone's concerned. We had a board finance committee meeting last week, and we also have a committee meeting set up for June. And then the official budget approval will have to come from the board in June. Mr. Wall does believe that we'll have more information within a week, but everything we do is going to be based on an estimate. And so as the board is aware, and anybody that would like to go watch the finance committee meeting, it was on our Facebook and our YouTube channel. We're preparing for 3 different budget scenarios. And that's the system we've put in. In fact, we were supposed to be presenting on that model nationally at the National School Board Conference until unfortunately the COVID situation hit. So everyone's concerned with the budget. However, we are not going to panic. There's a couple of things that are really going to help us. One of which is the fact that we've built up our fund balance over the last 4 to 5 years under the direction of the board. That will help us. The second thing, the Wayne County Enhancement Millage is another positive aspect, because we've moved, most of that money has gone for purchases and not for salaries. So we do have some flexibility, and if you've heard Mr. Wall say, we're going to have to come up with a 2 to 3 year plan to work through this budgetary downfall. It's not going to happen in 1 year, but because we have some of those funds, and thanks to the fiscal responsibility led by the Board of Education and of course Mr. Tom Wall, we've been able to do that. So now when we're in this situation, we can ride out these tough times. So I don't want to get into a lot of details on it other than I wanted to mention the budget, and it will be a concern for all of us, but we're not going to panic. We have a plan, and we're going to move forward with that, starting with the Finance Committee and Mr. Wall. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Madam Secretary.
Staff appreciation, teachers, principals, food service, administrative professionals, nurses, and all staff. And I think that includes some volunteers also.
Yes, and we'll also add in mothers. It was Mother's Day over the weekend, so happy Mother's Day to all of you. I hope you had a good day. And over the last month, we've had different staff appreciation days. So you listed them, Trustee Lane, and I appreciate that, and they were on the agenda. So I want to thank all of our staff and like you said, the parents and the volunteers for the great work that's been going on. And we see it each and every day. Maybe we don't see it personally in the buildings like we used to, but now we see it virtually. We see all the videos, we see all the things that are going on. And so all those people that were mentioned, all those groups, I want to just extend my appreciation to all of them. And I'm going to extend that to all our front line service workers out in the community as well, and the medical professionals. We appreciate the great work that they do to support us during this crisis.
Could I add one thing?
Please.
Sure.
I stopped for the food distribution at Fordson and at Edsel Ford, and there were student volunteers who were there. They had stopped in, and I, from a distance, asked a couple of people how it was going and whether they were stopping in regularly and whether it really, whether they were satisfied. They let me look at a bag. And I talked to a couple of grandmothers, and they were just absolutely gushing with appreciation. They really appreciated what the district has done. I mean, one went on and on at length, and she just said that it was really touching her heart, and she really deeply appreciated it. She was telling other kids in the neighborhood also that they needed to be over there doing that. So it's a real saving grace, and I'm so proud of us doing it.
Thank you for sharing. Next item, please.
School Restart Committee.
So I put this out publicly via social media, and I've been planning, but I appointed a committee that will be looking at the restart in the fall. The co-chairs will be some of our union heads, Jane Mazza, David Higgins, Jane Mazza from the DFT teachers, David Higgins from the ADSA administrators, and Mason Alibazzi from Human Resources. And so that committee is going to be very important. I know we're going to have a couple of trustees on the committee. I believe Trustee Thorpe and Trustee Lane and Trustee Mosick was agreed to be backup on that committee as well, or an alternate, excuse me. And so we have to start planning now because we're hearing different scenarios. Again, we don't know what's going to happen in the fall, but there's a chance that things may not be just coming back to normal. And so we have to plan, just like the budget, for multiple scenarios. I am hearing through my state organizations 3 different possibilities that would possibly, it would take action of the legislature. One word is, okay, everything looks really good and it's recovered in Michigan and we're back to normal. Okay, that's one option that I'm hearing of. The second option is we could be on a hybrid system, meaning we may not have students in school every day of the week. And again, that would take action of the legislature, but these are conversations that are starting to happen at the state level. And the third would be that things, unfortunately, have gotten a lot worse with the COVID-19 situation, and therefore we're back to online learning. So our committee needs to look at all those options and plan for all 3. And again, just like the budget, we'll have to take into consideration the budget. But this is going to be a very important committee because we're going to be looking at practices like social distancing. We will likely have subcommittees looking at athletics and other things. And so right now we haven't started yet, but that committee will be doing some very, very important work in the community. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to be proactive. We want to start now and be proactive getting ready for the fall. And so that's why this committee will come together and we'll be seeking lots of input. But again, student safety, the education of our students will be the #1 priority within what we're allowed to do, depending on the situation and whatever order the governor has at that time. Right now, I think we're over 80 orders by the governor. So, we're dealing with a crisis. And so our team will come together. We'll be proactive, appreciate the support of the community, the board, and all of our on their students as well, by the way. There'll be students on the committee, and we'll get input from the community as well. Thank you.
Are there any, Trustee Lane?
To anybody who says things are going to be back to normal, I'm asking people, and most people are saying, no, things are not normal. And as evidence of that, I would put forward the sympathy notes that we've received just recently. We had a string of deaths, and many of them are maybe unrelated, but at least one that I contacted recently was definitely COVID related. So I don't think things are not normal. Things are not going back to normal for a while. So I appreciate that we're thinking through different scenarios. I would just like to ask whether Dr. Maleko will have someone from Wayne County Health or somebody from the state of Michigan Public Health on that committee.
Yeah, we can do it. Sure, we can invite them to serve on the committee. For sure, that's a good idea.
Good, thank you.
Trustee Mead?
Question, will the decisions be made by the State Department of Education about what we will be doing, or will it be by district?
Well, the way we're going to either need the governor or the legislature to make the decision with the Michigan Department of Education, because the way the current law stands, we don't have the authority to modify the instructions. So the way the law stands right now is the governor, with her order, when she announced it back in April, gave us the ability to continue with online learning into the end of this year, but there is no legal authority for us as a board or the superintendent to do anything into the fall. The only flexibility I have is those 6 emergency days that I'm allowed to declare per state law. So we will have to work in coordination with the direction of the state on that. And that would be whether that's a governor's order or possibly action by the legislature. One of the two things would have to happen, because even the Michigan Department of Education doesn't have that authority. They interpret and implement it, but they have to wait for the action by the governor or the legislature, and then they can implement. They'll be giving recommendations. So
what is the purpose of the committee then?
our committee is really going to look at Dearborn specific, and we will coordinate efforts with the state as well to see what they're recommending, because there's a possibility, throughout the state, some districts could be in different situations as well, depending on where they're at. And so this is the responsibility of this committee, would be proactive to work in coordination with those groups. As you're aware, I'm on the State Superintendent Association board, and they're going to have a committee. And so I believe what will happen is we'll have to follow whatever they come down with or whatever recommendations, but I believe that we need to get started now and start exploring those ideas before those orders come, and be prepared for the possibility of those different options with partial school, hybrid school, or online learning, or coming back with all their students.
Well, one of the things that I've been reading about is that they're recommending across the country is that the elementary school children and the middle school children would spread out throughout the whole district, and the high school students would only be the only ones that would be online. And so that's another option. But if we were to consider that option, we would not be able to do that unless the Department of Education, the Michigan Department of Education, allowed for that across the whole state. Is that my understanding?
Yes, yeah, they would have to, in coordination with the legislature or the governor.
Okay, thank you.
So what I'm understanding is the guidelines will come from the state, and it's up to this committee to interpret, and we know our buildings in our district, see what it looks like in our own personal buildings, so at the elementary, middle, and the high school. I know Trustee Thorpe, you had a question?
Wasn't a question as much as just a comment. I already asked Dr. Maleko to also consider putting one of the district's psychologists also on the committee.
That's a good recommendation. Trustee Petrikov, please.
And can I assume we're going to have somebody from the college involved as well? Because we have dual enrollment and the early colleges, and they're going to they might have a slightly different alternative selection of choices than the P12 has, and we're going to need to make sure that our efforts are all coordinated. There's a lot of moving parts to this that, as has been already stated, we know our district, we know what our capacities are, but we're going to be asking an awful lot of our parents moving forward if we continue with some kind of either hybrid program or completely virtual program going into the fall. And I do fear that we're going to have a lot more struggles moving forward if we are not better informed of all of our options.
Great recommendation. Dr. Malika, would you have anything under other?
The only thing I have, President Berry, is I wanted to mention that the draft calendar was sent out for the board meetings for next year, and that would come to the board for approval in June. And we always announce it and give a month plus notice. So that's in there. If any board member has any feedback to provide that to Joanne here, that's the only other I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Recommendations and acknowledgements, commendations.
Thank you, Trustee Lane. We have a few commendations tonight, just a couple. But first, I'd just like to say that, there are so many people who have stepped up during the last few months, volunteering their time, working to provide meals, passing out Chromebooks, delivering online instruction, and countless other deeds that really go unnoticed sometimes. And obviously, we're not able to recognize everyone in this short little commendation section, but we do want to take this opportunity from time to time to send out just a special thanks to groups or individuals that we may become aware of or things that have become sent our way. So tonight, we'd like to recognize Brad and Karen Neff. Brad is a staff member here in our district, and he and his wife have donated 60 very high quality homemade masks. They donated those to the food service and volunteers who are working in the food distribution program. So we just wanted to take a moment to thank Brad and Karen for that little extra effort. And like we said, as others come our way and we're informed about it, we'll include them here in the commendations. But obviously, there are many, many people out there helping. Moving on to our high school commendations. Commendations to Michael Berry Career Center student Masood Ashakar. Masood is an 11th grader, and he won 3rd place in the 2020 North American International Auto Show Poster Contest. Unfortunately, that's one of many events that have been canceled, but we want to send our congratulations to him and doing a fine job in creating that poster. Commendations to all of our high school seniors who committed to colleges by May 1st, which was Commitment Day. Fortson wanted to especially recognize 5 students who've been accepted to Harvard, 2 to MIT, 1 to Brown University, and 1 to the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. Now, we know our other high schools have students who are also off to other prestigious universities as well, and we will include them in upcoming meetings. Commendations to Dearborn High film students who claimed 4 awards from the Michigan chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Writer-director Mi-Ling Marzoni won for Best Director for The High Road. Electric Oddity writer-director Tristan Nunez won for Best Writing. Have a Nice Day won for Best Long-Form Fiction. The award is shared by writer-director Damian Minton and producer Kate Roman. First Assistant Director Iman Alakash, editor Alex School, stars Victoria Irish and Elijah Fisher, and cinematographer Abbas Karnib. Abbas also won for Best Photography for Have a Nice Day. And with that, have a nice day.
Thank you, David. Next item, please.
Acknowledgement of donations.
Thank you, Trustee Lane. We have 2 donations today. A donation of $853 has been offered to Dearborn Public Schools by the Dearborn Education Foundation to be used for internet services. And a donation of $500 has been offered to the Dearborn Public Schools by the National Arab Orchestra to be used for our music program.
Trustee Lane?
I attended the concert that the National Arab Orchestra gave in conjunction with, I don't know, maybe 5 or 8 of our schools at Fordson. It was at the end of February, I think about the 27th or so. Not only did they donate money, but they spent so much time with our students. It was an amazing concert. There were so many different types of music featured. And it's just incredible that the students were taught to perform in and did songs in a couple of different languages. I know they did in Arabic, English, and I thought there was something in either French or Spanish. It's been a little while, but they did a fabulous job. So thank you so much for them, not only for the donation of cash, but also their beautiful skills.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on. Next item, please, Madam Secretary.
Approval of minutes of the following Dearborn Board of Education meetings. Regular P12 meeting, April 13th, 2020, Board Report 19, 118. Executive session closed evaluation, April 30th, 2020, board report 19, 119. Finance committee meeting, May 5th, 2020, board report 19, 120. Recommended action, make any necessary corrections and move approval of these minutes.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion that was moved by trustee Petrikov, supported by trustee Thorpe. Do we have any corrections or any questions? Trustee Lane?
Page 10 of the regular meeting meant it noted my comments, and I had asked people to think about healthcare. And I specifically mentioned the coronavirus, and I wanted that included. The sentence reads, thinking about universal health care, and particularly in light of the coronavirus. And I really would like to have that mentioned because we did bring that up at the City Relations Committee. We were talking about this a while back. So I would like that noted. It's not like we did not pay attention. We did have some consideration of that topic. So I'd like to have that noted for that reason.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call vote at this time?
Lane, yes. McDonald? Yes. Mead? Dr. Mead?
He has to unmute.
I had it on mute.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Mosip?
Yes.
Petchlokoff?
Yes.
Thorpe?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes. Please attach a unanimous roll call vote. Thank you. Next item, please.
Special reports, none.
Next item.
I am going to go and look for the next item is citizen participation. Citizens wishing to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items for action can complete a virtual blue card, which will be posted at noon, May 11th, 2020 on the district's website at http://firstbelldearbornschools.org. Forms received by 7:10 p.m. will be read by the board secretary. The board may not be in a position to respond to non-agenda items. I do not see, and I'm going to try to refresh one more time my screen, but I had not seen any in there. I'm refreshing it right now. And it looks like, no, there are no, wait a minute, it's still loading.
I don't see any.
Yeah, I don't see any in there right now. It's telling me it's still loading, but I think there are none unless anyone else wants to correct me.
I didn't see anything. Right.
No,
Okay.
and I believe she turned it off before the meeting. So if you refreshed then.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't see anything. So next is action items, special consideration of an action item. Are there any agenda items on this agenda which board members or the superintendent wish to discuss and vote on separately? If there are, we will exclude these from the motion below.
Anyone?
I have action item 14 for the legal contract. I have some questions, and I'd like that to be pulled, please.
So you're pulling number 14.
Yes.
Anyone else?
May I make a notation? Just for
Yes.
public comment. Dr. Maleko and several people responded. I don't remember who, I think Mr. Wall and some other people. I just want to note that there are some organizations that have received, some countries even, that have received inferior and dangerous products, such as masks from China or other equipment. So I asked that that any equipment we order or supplies be checked carefully to make sure that it is functioning. So Mr. Wall did respond to that. I assume that most people saw his email. And then on the transportation one, I asked and it was answered. And I just want to make a note publicly that on the transportation. If we do not need the transportation, we will not be paying for it. We're being billed on a monthly basis. So I want to assure people that we are taking every measure as a board, as a district, as an administration, to be wise stewards of our resources. So that I just wanted to make a note of that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we're pulling 14. You want to go ahead and read the recommended?
Move that action items numbered 1 through 15 be approved as recommended in this agenda with the exception of 14. And I would just like to make the note also that there is a personnel supplement that was sent out late today, but is included in the personnel items.
Thank you.
So moved.
Support.
So the motion was moved by trustee Petrikov, supported by trustee Dr. Mead. Any discussion, any questions? I don't see any, so roll call. Trustee Thorpe, do you have anything to say?
No, I was shaking my
Okay, I
head.
thought you, okay, thank you, thank you. Let's have a roll call vote, please, Madam Secretary.
Lane, yes. McDonald? Yes. Mead?
Yes.
Mosip?
Yes.
Petchlokoff?
Yes.
Thorpe?
Yes.
President Barry?
Yes. Please attach a unanimous roll call vote to the motion. Madam Secretary, can we go to the summary of agenda action items at this point?
Okay, the summary. Summary of agenda action items. Number 1, approval of warrants. Number 2, approval of contract to Stafford Smith per board report 19-122. Number 3, approval of contract of Avcentric Technologies. Number 4, approval of contract to First Ohio Inc. Number 5, approval of contract to National Trails Transportation. Number 6 through 9, approval of non-instructional and instructional personnel items for P12. Number 10, approval of financial statement. Number 11, approval of Wayne Risa budget per board report 19-128. 12, approval of ratification of the Association of Dearborn School Administrators contract. 13, approval of resolution for school of choice. 15, approval of donations.
Good, thank you. Can we revisit action item number 14, please?
Number 14 is the amendment of the legal retainer board report 19-129. The recommended action is that it is recommended that the board approve the amendment of contract to Bear Howlett in the increase in hourly rate in the retainer contract amendment to $150 per hour per board report 19-129.
So moved.
Support.
So the motion was moved by trustee Thorpe and supported by trustee Lane. At this point, trustee Moser, you had some questions?
Yeah, so the first question, obviously, I've read the report prepared by Mr. Wall about where the attorney's fees are in the low percentile compared to the other districts. However, I have some questions and obviously some reservations since we're talking about budgeting and the need to reduce costs in the next few, and we don't, honestly, we still don't have a good grasp of it. I just think that timing for this contract is not that great. So I just have a question as far as this is moving forward, Dr. Maleko. I would assume that this contract is moving forward.
Yes, that's correct. And I have Mr. Wall available too.
And how often do we review this? Is it, as far as the legal contract, is it every 10 years? Is it every 2 years?
Mr. Wall, why don't you answer that? Oh, he's muted. You're
still muted.
David to the rescue.
Well, he's got David's name on his screens. It's still muted, David.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is a legal retainer contract that was put in place in 2012. And there was probably another contract prior to that. From my understanding, we've been with Bayer Howard since 2003. And their rate started at $140 back in 2003. And as you can see by the backup detail, that the mean rate for the type of projects that for human resources, employee management, and contracts is around $265 in our Wayne County area. And they've been at $140 since 2003. And they actually took a wage decrease back in 2008-9 when they know the district was in a hard spot at that point. And we just recently, I think just last year, moved it back up to 140. So I'm comfortable with it. We're looking at the average billable hours for an annual basis. This is going to probably be just under about $4,000 for a total increase. So on the budgetary aspect, I'm not overly concerned that this is going to cause a hardship in just that. And they've been a partner with us for a long time. And, if I see a contract that low, I'm not overly concerned if we actually went up $10 per hour for this contract.
Trustee Lane?
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Do you have a follow-up question,
No,
Trustee Moser?
no. Go ahead, Trustee.
Trustee Lane, you had a question or a comment?
I do remember when and why it was when we instituted this contract. It was at the suggestion of Trustee Jim Schoolmaster. Who reviewed tons of legal billing and found some irregularities. We were primarily upset because we received legal advice that we didn't think was really good. We asked for it to be reviewed. We opened a bid. And they've served us very well in the meantime. But I would like to say this. 17 years of no change. Bad legal advice would be, it could be millions of dollars. So I am very confident in their advice. I'd like to retain it. And further, I would like to say that we have not been asleep at the wheel during this time. I know that I discussed this with whether we needed another bid period process. I discussed it with a couple of attorneys who were on the board. You'll remember Miriam Bazzi and Fedwa Hamoud. Right. So we have discussed this over the years. It's not that we've been inattentive. We just, we as board members felt that we had been satisfied with the services that we've received.
Trustee Lane, your comments regarding when we went to, you're talking about 2002, 2003?
Yes.
Is that what you were referring to? Okay,
Right.
Trustee Petrikov?
Well, and I would just like to concur with Trustee Lane that, and Bayer Howlett was one of the first people when we were in financial straits back in 2008 when I joined the board, who was willing to reduce their rates for us and take a loss as well as everyone else had. And we're very patient and have always served us well. And I see nothing wrong in the timing and the fact that, sometimes you can be penny wise and a pound foolish, as they used to say. And if we're looking at a few $1,000s extra over the length of a year's contract for the excellent representation they've given us, to assume that we could walk away from this and potentially lose this contract and then find something better, it is probably not a wise move. And satisfying, they're a business as well, and they need to survive as well as everybody else. I don't think what they're asking for is outrageous. And they have been continuing to be good partners with us over the years. I wouldn't fault them for wanting a increase like this. It might look bad timing wise, but you know what? We just turned away a contract recently that everybody said was because of a timing issue, and we ended up hiring somebody that we had to fire within a few weeks. Because they weren't the service that we thought we were going to get because somebody wanted to save a few $1,000s. I'm not willing to jeopardize this relationship when they have managed to do the job for us in all these years for $10 an hour.
I don't believe trustee Moses is questioning the service or, the relationship we have with her. He's just saying, this is, we're.
Well, this is another timing issue that he's
Well,
bringing
I
up and,
mean, That's
know.
okay. That's okay. That's all right. Trustee McDonald?
Yeah, I just concur both with Trustee Petchlokoff and Trustee Lane and all the comments that they've given. I also want to add the historical knowledge that they have with us is invaluable. And as individuals, they have also come to numerous fundraisers and supported the district and the foundations in many ways. So I just, I think that their service is outstanding and well worth what we pay for them.
Again, nobody's questioning their service.
Right. I'm just adding my thoughts.
Timing. Yeah, exactly. Sure. Trustee Lane?
Oh, I was just going to say, as you've already said, President Barry, I appreciate that Trustee Moseb is sensitive to the timing of this pandemic when there's so many people that are unemployed and people are just worried so much about their finances. We're all worried about lots and lots of things. So for that reason, of course, he questions it at the time. We probably should have done this several years ago and they should have asked us, but I thank them for not asking us before. And I'm grateful for it being delayed. So for that reason, I think that we should go ahead and I would ask Trustee Moseb to try to consider that.
Anyone else?
I just
Go ahead, Trustee
before we vote on this question for Dr. Maleko, and maybe Tom can answer this. As far as the average number of hours that they would service in a year, do those numbers fluctuate by a huge number, or you would say that they're not that far apart as far as the standard deviation between? Go ahead.
I would say on a contractual year, they probably are a little higher. When we settled the 5-year contract a couple years ago, we had to consult with them a lot on contractual language. But outside of that, it's probably a typical year.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and put it to vote. Roll call vote, please, Trustee Madam Secretary.
Okay, Lane, yes. McDonald?
Yes.
Mead?
Yes.
Moseb?
Yes.
Petchlokoff?
Yes.
Thorpe?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes. Again, attach a unanimous roll call vote to this motion. Thank you. Next item, please.
Discussion item, 30-minute time limit, graduation ceremonies.
So we have President Barry, we have a couple guests that are going to pop in here, Mr. Casebolt for this, and Mr. Abe Ahmed, a senior student at Fordson, part of the Student Advisory Council, and Mr. Casebolt, the principal at Edsel Ford, and Mr. Mustonen will also be part of this conversation. As I know the board is aware, we've been having lots of dialogue with students, with our team over the last month plus really graduation ceremonies. And some of the board trustees, I know Trustee Thorpe, you've joined in some of the meetings with the students, Trustee Moseb, Trustee Lane, and actually Trustee McDonald, you've been at some of the advisory council. So there's two groups of students that we've been meeting with, and then we've been having discussions with the principals. The other thing that we're doing, just like the Restart Committee, is we're monitoring what's going on across the state and actual nationally. I think we're seeing some ideas that are coming out of other states because their school year regularly in some of the southern states would end right about this time anyway, in May. So we're seeing different ideas that are being brought forward. David Mustonen came up with an idea. Trustee Thorpe had an idea. I think Trustee McDonald, I've had lots of people sharing ideas. It's been a real nice dialogue. One of the things, I think we've had now 2 meetings with the Student Council and then Mr. Abe Ahmed's group and the Student Advisory Council. We've probably met now 3 or 4 times, I think, since the closure. And we stay in contact as well. So it's kind of different groups that we're listening to. Some of the students, I'll just say, and I'm going to say it, and I put out many social media posts on this, is that it isn't fair to our students. Let's just say this whole situation isn't fair, and we wish we could have a traditional ceremony. But the reality is, and I think that the students came to that reality at the last maybe meeting and seeing things, is that it likely will not be possible to have a traditional ceremony unless we wanted to really put it off for months. And it didn't seem like that was the favorable method. Some of the ideas that David Mustin and Jim Thorpe have talked about, and some of the notes have been in the document the ongoing document that I give for the board, is things that I'm starting to hear from my fellow colleagues. It was pretty quiet in the superintendent ranks for quite a while as to what districts were doing. And now these ideas are starting. In fact, David Mustin and Ms. Hiam Al-Qadre also went on a webinar this past Wednesday. And it also talked about legally what you can do and some of the provisions. So that's where I'd like to start it with, is maybe allow Mr. Casebolt and Mr. Abe Ahmed just talk about the process we've been going through. And then I'll have Mr. Mustin come in after and talk about the webinar and talk about the idea. Again, it's a brainstorm. I think, Abe, I've been pretty clear when I say, okay, these are just ideas, because we don't want someone coming out of a meeting saying we decided, because we did. We had always planned to come to the board, and we were dialoguing. We were brainstorming just as we had to. How can we recognize our students? They deserve to be recognized. How can we do it in a safe manner? And so that's what's been going on. And that is some of the dialogue. I do also feel an obligation as superintendent for Dearborn Schools, student safety, number one. And I did ask the students at the last two meetings, because we were starting to hear information that students were just, after this, whatever recognition we have or we plan, that students are just going to get together and not social distance. So I want to put it out there publicly that that is not the recommended choice. That is not safe, and it is not a good idea. So I asked the students to help get that word out too. Let's be responsible. Again, we know it's not fair. We know we want to do things to recognize our students, but we also have to be responsible, because we're talking about life and death in many situations here. So I was pretty clear with the student groups last time that I asked for their help in getting that message out, as long as, as well as I'll be putting that out. And I know the board will help us get that message out, along with David and the whole communications department. So I'd like to hand it over to, unless there's any specific questions for me, I'll proceed with going to Mr. Casebolt, who can talk about what he's been discussing with the principals. And I've been in a couple meetings with them. In fact, we have another meeting scheduled for Wednesday, and then I'll turn it over to Abe Ahmed, the student. Oh.
1 second, Trustee Petrikov.
I just have one quick question. When I was reading all of the notes, the one piece of the puzzle I really was not seeing, but it may have been there. Maybe I just missed it. I know students were involved and administrators were involved, and were their parents involved as well, who could weigh in on what they were looking for their students, or no?
We have not had a meeting with the parents, but we did discuss possible surveys. And so we are going to discuss ways to get input. Right now, it's been students and our administration and teachers that have met. But we did discuss, so a Google type survey is something that we are giving consideration both for students and parents.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Good evening. Hopefully you can hear me all right. It's a pleasure to be here. We've had a lot of conversations about this issue, because we all, and I speak for all the high school principals, care deeply for our class of 2020 seniors. We have had like Dr. Malenko said, we've had numerous conversations with the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, student council members. I've had conversations with my Etzel students in person at the food distribution and online. We've had deep conversations at high school forums and idea sharing. Principal Al-Qadre has attended meetings at the state. I'm in close contact, weekly meetings with my downriver principals. I know Principal Martin is also handling the KLAA principals for information. So what I want to stress most of all is that the three high schools here are working very closely together for our class of 2020 seniors. At the end of all this, I assure you, and I assure the families, and I assure my students that no one's going to say we didn't do right by the class of 2020. So lots of conversations have been taking place. Like Dr. Malenko said, I think we're at that phase now where we'll involve the parents in some type of a survey. But we've had ongoing conversations about this. And I think that while we can't reveal everything that we're talking about because we're worried about social distancing, I know up on the board that I'm looking at currently, 1, 2, 3, we have 7 events planned for them, obviously including some type of graduation, whatever that's going to look like. So we're going to honor them in many ways, and we look forward to that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Casel. We'll turn it over to Abe Achman and his involvement with the council in our discussions.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on. So I don't think it's a mystery that the vast majority of the class of 2020, the seniors, they already know that we're not going to have a traditional graduation, but most of them know that this is only for the purpose of protecting the safety of the greater good. And so that's what's most important here. We can't take the risk of, putting people in situations where they can contract the virus or, give it to someone else. But as Dr. Malenko said, no decisions are being made. However, it is important to have an open dialogue with the students and, the Student Advisory Council and Student Council and the Board of Education, because we're dealing with an unprecedented situation here where we're going to be looked at in history because this has never happened before. So we have to do the best we can to make the best decision and hopefully provide an example for future generations if they deal with something like this. And so that's why we have to work together and try to come up with the best alternative solution where, not everyone's going to be satisfied 100%, but we have to do the best we can while protecting the public, while also making sure that we honor our seniors, in which they very much deserve to be honored. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Trustee Lane?
I would just like to say the fact that you spoke so eloquently and your class is you're self-sacrificing for the greater good is probably the greatest statement that you guys could make. It's really amazing. I'm so appreciative that you understand the risk here and that you've chosen. I did have some conversations with some parents that I saw in the neighborhood and then some seniors also asking them. And the first thing out of everyone's mouth is we want to be like everybody else. We want to share what everybody has had. And then when I ask them the question, at what cost do you want to do that? Everybody has said to me, as you've just said, Mr. Ahmed, everybody has said, we don't want to do this at the risk to other people. And that's what's befuddled us all so much with this coronavirus is it's so unpredictable. We think we understand that it affects older persons, and then we find out that there are children at risk. So the act that you guys have made, and I understand, that there's mixed feelings about it, but that's the hugest statement that you could make. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald?
I just wanted to add that the Student Advisory Council has been outstanding all year. I've been dealing with them at meetings and their leadership when it comes to dispersing the information that we give them or that they've gotten from Dr. Malenko to their individual schools and taking the lead has been outstanding. So I just want to give them just an additional shout out. And this is unprecedented, like everyone said, but it just shows their leadership abilities, and I commend them all.
Trustee Mead, do you have anything to add?
No, I do not.
Okay, Trustee Moser?
Yes, I'd like to thank Dr. Malenko for involving the students in the decision-making process. I think it's very important that we listen to our students. We do, I think, and I can speak for all of us together that we want to honor the class of 2020. They do deserve a recognition for all of their efforts that they've done over the years, and that they will graduate with some kind of graduation ceremony that we're still working through. So I appreciate the inclusion of the students. I echo Trustee Peskov that we include parents in this decision, that we bring it together. But I would like to note that we will also have to go by the guidelines that the Department of Education may bring forward and the state may bring forward. I don't think we still know much of those guidelines as far as graduations, but I think the state may present those, and I believe by law, we have to follow those guidelines as well.
Thank you. Trustee Petrikov?
Yeah, one thing is that I understand that this is a extremely disappointing time for students who had anticipated and looked forward to so many events. I remember my two girls going through their senior year and all of the tributes, either be it a sports banquet or graduation, that created memories for them and their families. One of the reasons why I brought up families was because families are key players in celebrating their students, but they're also the group that is vulnerable to a large gathering. And I so much appreciate the students who are willing to give that up at a time when they want the spotlight on them because they've worked so hard for it. And I just want to remind them that not only are they protecting themselves, they're protecting their younger brothers and sisters as we see this virus change its course and who it attacks. They're protecting their loved ones in their homes as well as the public at large. But I also want to remind them, my girls have gone on to celebrate much greater events in their lives that have stood out even better for them: marriages, birth of children, college graduations. This will not be, as disappointing as it is, the only time you will get to celebrate your achievements. You'll go on to find bigger and better achievements that will highlight your lives. And while your 2020 graduation is going to be remembered for something unexpected, unprecedented, and unasked for, I hope that you all find ways to accept our congratulations, as limited as they may be, and move forward to find more exciting ways to celebrate your lives in the future.
Thank you. Trustee Thorpe? Anything to add?
Yeah, to all the seniors, personally, I think this stinks for you, and I'm sorry that you're having to go through this. And if this was something that we could fix, trust us, we would do it. And if this was something that we thought by putting off, we'd be able to make right by you, we would consider it. But we're in a situation where we don't know how long this would be delayed. I want to make sure we give some recognition in a timely manner. So we want to be able to move forward with something before there's a chance for real celebrations possibly down the road.
Thank you. Mr. Casebolt, through your words, I can hear your passion and your care for our students. So I know you said you represent the other two principals. I thank you for that. Also, we can't forget about the early college and the magnet school, all of our students. And I know the same, the committee is going to be looking into what we can do for our middle schoolers who are moving on and our elementary students who are moving on. Mr. Ibrahim Ahmed, what could I say? Thank you for your service. It was a pleasure working with you. It was a pleasure working with you the last couple of years. Best wishes to you in the future endeavors. I mean, I know we're going to be watching, looking out for you, and you're going to be going far. And go Warriors. We'll see what the season will look like. Hopefully it'll be a season, but we'll see. We'll be there looking for you. Dr. Mead.
I feel badly that I said nothing after everybody said so much. It is very important that we honor our students, but I would like to say this. It would be the thing to put right on the top of your resume. You're the class of 2020, and nobody will ever forget you. And they
No.
will know immediately what you went through. And it will be a stamp of approval for the rest of your lives. Thank you.
You saved that for last. It was very good. Thank you, Dr. Mead. Yeah, Ibrahim, I want to thank you and your team, your fellow students. You were great ambassadors between us and the parent with the students. Thank you. Dr. Maleko saw something in you. That's why he appointed you to take the lead. So is there anything else? If not, we're ready to move on. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Trustee Barry, President Barry, are we going to have a presentation by Mr. Mustonen about or Dr. Maleko about the
webinar.
proposal? Yeah.
Yeah, we can discuss that, and I'll have David, if that's okay, I'll have David come on. Again, these are just ideas. One thing, and David, you can speak to, I know that, some people, one of the reasons why we had to postpone these ceremonies because legally, and you came out of the webinar, we wouldn't be able to have them under the current dates until we recently made that decision because of all the governor's order. And that was clearly stated in the legal webinar that he went into with the state this past week. I believe that, and I think Mr. Casebolt watched it after, I know Ms. Al-Qadri, and I believe the soonest you could do anything, I believe, was to the end of June, if not moving until July, I think. So I'll let David kind of, and again, it's just a brainstorm, but I'll let David go ahead and comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Maleko. Yes, that's true. Just in the webinar that was Principal Al-Qadri and I both attended, put on by the State Superintendents Association, following the state, the governor has a very specific plan for reopening the state, and so does the federal government. And following both of those plans, either one, if you picked one or the other or both of them, really the earliest that you could do any kind of ceremony would be mid-June, and that would not be a traditional, let's invite everybody and have 1,000 people there. That's not what they were saying. They were saying it could not be until mid-June that you could even attempt to do some type of hybrid type of ceremony with social distancing and all of the other safeguards in place. So I think that really we're looking at something more along the lines of something into July that would really be more realistic as far as a timeline for this. Now, again, everything is up for interpretation as we follow the current, executive orders as they come out, and additional executive orders may come out, further on down the road. So again, I, just want to restate what's been said over and over. These are ideas, and we must, follow the guidelines that are handed down to us from the state and make those guidelines work within our community. So in meeting with the students, and BIDS was part of those meetings with the board members and the students, listening to what the students were saying, taking into consideration the current executive orders that are out there and the mandates that we have to follow from the state, and also our own logistical concerns here in the district, because every district has its own logistical concerns and has to look at how they can put something together. So I just kind of took all of those things, put them all together, and put it down onto paper. I had the privilege of working with a great commentator, Fred McLeod, who has now passed away. And we used to work very hard at preparing scripts for Fred, and we'd hand them to him, and he would totally go through them and rewrite them. And the producers would get kind of angry, and they'd say, why do we even bother doing this if you're just going to rewrite them? He said, no. You've done the hard part. You've put it all down. Now I'm just tweaking it. So that's all that I did here, is I just took what I was hearing out of these meetings and put it on paper and created some conversation points for now the board, our principals, and others to now fine tune and tweak. And one of the main things that the students kind of pointed out that was important to them, and we can find out even more when we do surveys, but the students said they didn't want just a virtual kind of an event, just an event where there's slides on a screen or, pre-recorded videotape of something like that. They wanted some type of interactive event. And so how we can do that with keeping social distancing and keeping safe, was part of what went into what I came up with. And so we're talking about kind of a drive-in, kind of a drive-through kind of event, drive-through food, drive-through Chromebook distribution. That all seems to work kind of well. It's safe. We can keep our distance. It's minimal amount of exposure. So we want to try to keep that theme going. But then the kind of the twist on it would be that the cars would actually drive up, stop. The student and two parents or two guardians would get out of the car with the student, walk through an area, keep social distancing. There would be dignitaries there who would not touch or anything, just verbally congratulate the students, would be a safe distance away from them. And the student would have their picture taken just like they do now. When they have graduation ceremonies, there's a picture taken of them holding their diploma. We could do that exact same thing. They would then move on. The car that dropped them off would then be further down at a pickup area. They would get in that car and drive away. This would prevent anybody from kind of gathering, and it would keep the crowds down. We could time it. We could assign times that people would show up. We could probably move through this. It might take a little bit longer, 3-hour period, maybe 4. But if you assign times and you assign people to it, then you wouldn't have everybody all showing up at 1 in the afternoon. You know, they would show up at designated times. That's just a very brief overview of it. I think I provided a little bit more detail to all the board. And even since then, I know Trustee Thorpe has contacted me, and him and I have discussed how we could do this plan and move it outside so that we could keep that tradition alive, that it would still take place outside. I think people feel safer too outside with the current condition rather than being inside of a building.
Yes.
So I think that that would be something that would make it work as well. And I think logistically, we can work through the logistics of how we can get a car in, drop off, they drive around to a designated pickup area, the student walks to that pickup area, and then they're off and they're on their way. It does preserve a lot of those traditions, the cap and gown, walking in the cap and gown, having your parents nearby to see that moment and take part in that moment with you, which is also something the students said was very important to them.
How exciting. Thank you, Mr. Musselin.
Thank you.
I know things are changing daily, so we'll see. We'll see how things work out. I know just 10 days ago, I was receiving phone calls from students and parents, and they're like, oh, you already made a decision. Just let us know. I said, no, we did not make a decision. Last week, the governor made a decision for us, but I know there's a lot of great ideas on the table. That was an amazing plan, which you just went over. I'm sure we'll tweak it and we'll go from there. Trustee Lane, you had something to add?
Yeah, I did get a request from one parent that I spoke to. She said, please just make a decision. Don't drag it out for forever. We'd just like to know so we can start planning. And then also I appreciate Trustee Thorpe's suggestion to have it outside. Outside is more beautiful anyways. It's better pictures when you're outside. It's traditional and it's also a lot safer. We may have to think about that for some classes as well, because we know that sunlight and air are good disinfectants. So I'd like to throw that out if we can, and then use the plan to walk through the building maybe as an alternate. But if you did it outside, you could also, the students' names could be read over the PA system. It's usually in the stadium. So that would be a big time thing. Nice.
Sure. Outside would be great, but we can't forget we live in Michigan. So
look outside right now.
And Trustee Lane, just to, I know I've received some of the same phone calls. The easy thing for us in administration to do was better than just, hey, we're just going to do a virtual graduation and move on. So I've seen some of the districts. We're holding on. We're waiting as soon as we get a chance to do something for class of 2020, we're prepared. That's why there's so many options on the table. So I thank the committee and Trustee Thorpe's leadership and Dr. Maleko's leadership on this. So thank you. Unless there's Trustee Thorpe?
Trustee Lane brings up a good point about getting something planned. In terms of graduations, we usually approve the dates. If we assume that at our June board meeting, would we be able at that point to give everyone dates as to this is when we hope to have it, and this might be an alternate date pending any further action from the state?
Yeah,
Dr.
yes,
Maliko,
yeah, I can respond. Thank you, President Barrett. Yes, tomorrow we are not tomorrow, sorry, on Wednesday, we have a meeting with the principals to start getting that firmed up. And then we're going to be looking at that survey that we want to do as well. So I would think that by the June board meeting, we would definitely have some dates. And I like the idea of here's the dates that we would plan on. Maybe here's some alternative. I do think that, you know, initially there was some discussion of do you hold off till like December? But I don't think that was the favorable option based on the meetings we've had, that we would want to do something this summer. And that's from all the dialogue we've had. Initially, though, that was on the table, and that was mentioned by, I think, some of the student group and even the principals. But I think we've kind of moving away from that. So I would just let the board know that we would probably be looking at the timelines that David mentioned, you know, whether that be the end of June or probably more likely into July, and then try to firm something up and then maybe have a backup date like you mentioned. I think is a good idea. So we can start going in that direction.
A quick follow-up with that then would be, while we have to vote for the official dates for the graduations, if we have an idea in the next 2 or 3 weeks when we're looking, could we at least share that with people that these are probable dates pending board approval, just so people can make sure that they've got it on their calendar before things start getting closer in?
it's a good idea. Okay, if there's nothing else, again, thank you, gentlemen, and Madam Secretary, Mr. Casebolt, oh, you just waving by? Okay, have a good evening, sir. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, so Madam Secretary, next item.
Board of Education business, acknowledgement of correspondence.
Anyone? Okay, we'll go to the next item.
Board member committee and organization reports.
I know we have a few. Let's start with Trustee McDonald. I know you got a couple to report on.
Yes, I'll start with, there was a finance committee meeting held on Monday, May 4th. Dr. Maliko and Mr. Wall were also in attendance. On the agenda was the state budget updates, different scenarios, long-term view, the process going forward, and possible adjustments of legal fees. Some of that's we've already covered in tonight's meeting. Basically, the 3 scenarios that we talked about were the best case, the worst case, and the most likely. Understanding or having some kind of understanding of these cases, that broadens our understanding of the current crisis, and it also allows some measure of flexibility as the details become more apparent. We may get some clarity after the state's budgeting conference, which is scheduled for May 15th. The state is also facing a lot of uncertainty, and there may be an additional revenue conference in August due to delays in tax collection, which the state had agreed to. The district will receive approximately $8.5 million from the CARES Act, and the approximate fund balance of 10 to 12% is needed to avoid summertime borrowing, which we've had to do in the past. And so these are just kind of basics, but again, things are so flexible or so up in the air right now, it's kind of hard to have a specific direction to go in. That's why we looked at the 3 different scenarios. Perhaps we will be back to some sense of stability by the end of calendar year 2022. And what is apparent that we are facing budget cuts the remainder of this year, and they will continue into next year. And we're going to continue to monitor the developing situation. I also, go ahead.
Any questions for the Finance Committee? Okay, go ahead, trustee McDonald, continue, please.
We also had a meeting of the annual we did these annual superintendent's budget I'm sorry. We did the annual superintendent's evaluation, and that was conducted using the required MASB tool. And each individual board member submitted their evaluations. And we also took into consideration recent staff surveys that had been taken. The results were compiled. A closed session per Dr. Malako's request was held with the entire board. And I am pleased to announce that our superintendent, Dr. Glenn Maleko, has been rated highly effective. Congratulations, Dr. Maleko. Well done.
Hey!
Thank you.
I believe that's it for committee reports. Dr. Mead?
This is relative to the evaluation of the president.
Sure.
Thank you.
We don't want to steal any thunder away from Dr. Maleko. Go ahead, sorry, continue. Sorry to interrupt you, continue.
I love his thunder. So thanks to all the board members for submitting their evaluation forms and their comments. On the 13th of May, you will receive the results of your evaluations. And on next Monday night, we'll have a closed session with Mr. Cavaluna after the regular meeting for an evaluation. He requested a closed session. Any questions?
Thank you for the update, Dr. Mead. Next item, Madam Secretary.
Board member superintendent commentary.
I'll just go through the list. Trustee Lane.
I would just say thank you. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and we're all appreciating our teachers, not just our teachers, but every single person that it takes to run a district. The teachers are featured this week, but everyone from the superintendent down to the lunch line people or the playground people. We miss them so much and appreciate them now more than ever. So thank you to everyone.
Trustee McDonald.
Those were my thoughts as well. I want to say thank you to all the teachers and everyone that's involved in this district. And I just have to say that I am so proud to do my small part to be involved in this district because we are outstanding. We do wonderful things every day. We feed kids, we educate kids, we give them support that's needed, and we just make this community a better place to live.
You know, instead of putting people on the spot, I'll just ask anybody else.
No, I just was.
I'd echo what trustees McDonald and Lane have said. There's been so many people trying to get so much accomplished in this environment of virtual learning and teachers learning new education systems, and the students also having to learn how to do this. However, we've had a handful of students that decided or that made bad choices. And their choices didn't just impact their classes or even their schools, they've impacted the whole district and the way we try to provide this education. So I hope that we find a good response to those students, that they know that this is nothing to be trifled with. They're impacting everybody's education, and that no one else even considers making foolish choices that are going to impact everyone else.
Thank you. Trustee Petrikov.
I was just going to say that now we're going to have to classify our parents and or guardians also as teachers because they've had to take over that responsibility for the last few weeks. But yes, I think that appreciating our entire staff is something that I don't know how we thank everyone for going the extra mile under these circumstances, and the students for putting up with everybody as we've all tried to muddle our way through these extraordinary times, and the stress that it has placed upon families is probably pretty phenomenal. And I just hope that as things subside over the next year, that we will not forget how everyone pulled together to try to support each other during the bad times so that we're prepared to learn from it for the good times.
It's a very good point, Trustee Petrikov. But the parents I've been talking to, they're saying thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah,
Can't
we don't
wait to send their
we don't
kids.
want to do this anymore.
Trustee Moser?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to, I think that the teachers every single day and all of the people who work at the schools, teaching is a noble profession. As I always say, it's the noblest profession. And I salute all of our teachers and all of the people who work at our schools because they do a lot of work. You realize that when you take their job for a half day. And I'd like to also thank all of the essential workers who are working, whether you're working at a grocery store to keep things moving or you're working in a hospital as a healthcare worker hero. This pandemic has shown us and made us appreciate all of the different roles that everybody plays in society to help everybody, whether you're a teacher or you're a healthcare worker or you're doing your job. So I thank all of those who are in the front lines, and my hat goes off to them. I say, please be safe. Always exercise those social, I call it physical distancing because social distancing is kind of different in my interpretation, but I thank all of them. One thing that I'd like to remind everybody, if you haven't done it, the census is very, very crucial, very important. You can go to the census.gov website to request a code if you misplace the code somewhere. Otherwise, you will have some other people coming in and knocking, and we would like to also save them as well and also make ourselves safe. So it's very important that you take those 10 minutes and you fill out the census. It's great for everybody to be counted, and millions of dollars are decided based on the census. So I encourage everybody who hasn't filled out the census to go out and fill it out. And once again, I thank all of the essential workers for their hard work during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you for championing the census.
Dr. Mead?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the highly effective rating that Dr. Maleko received is the highest possible rating that the board can give him. And our district is as good as our superintendent. So I hope everybody in the community understands that this board has total support for this superintendent and that we appreciate his leadership.
Dr. Maleko, do you have any? Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't unmute. Yes, thank you, Dr. Mead, President Barry. And I just want to say that the rating is really a reflection of our entire team. You mentioned the teachers, to the service workers, to the food. It's the team philosophy. And so that rating really belongs to the entire school community. And we have a great team. The board is a big part of it. And I appreciate the trust that the board has in me and our team and how we work together so well. We were put to the test the last couple of months, and we stepped up and will continue to be put to the test. So again, I want to thank all of you as board members, as leaders of the community, and then my team, obviously, my administrative team, my executives, the cabinet. They really do outstanding work, and we really have a great trust that we've built for the benefit of the students. And I have the sign in the background there, and I know you all see that, keep putting students first. So I appreciate all of you. And again, this rating really belongs to the entire school community. So thank you for the highly effective rating and your support.
Thank you. I echo my colleagues' comments regarding our teachers, but in Dearborn, we don't wait for teacher appreciation. We thank our teachers every chance we get. Dr. Maleko, I want to take this opportunity to thank you. The communication the last 2-3 months has been unbelievably great, to be honest with you. I know the first 6 to 7 weeks, we were talking, my colleagues and I were on the phone pretty much almost every day. I know you were updating us every day. The last few weeks, I think this is why I want to thank you because the document you created, and thank you, Trustee Lane, for that idea. It was a great idea. We can go anytime we want and get the updates that we want. We want to see what's going on, what you're doing, who you're meeting with. So that's very good. And thank you for setting up the small group meetings too. I think that was very helpful for my colleagues. I think the last couple of weeks, my colleagues missed me. I was like, hey, we're not talking to them anymore. So, but you're welcome to call me anytime with any issues. So I don't think we've had anything, but we have a great superintendent that we go to when we're dealing with things. If there's nothing else, we'll go to the next item, please.
Next item is requests for information and/or future agenda items.
Anybody? I'm not going to go through a roll call, just Trustee Lane.
I was going to ask about athletics. I'm assuming, Dr. Maleko, that under the current scenarios, most people are thinking that those are not going to occur during the winter term. But thank you for noting that it would be in the there'll be a subcommittee, you said, in the restart committee. So I appreciate that. Then if I could also just mention that on June 2nd, there will be the Green Tie 50/50 raffle drawing for the Dearborn Education Foundation. The Education Foundation has purchased internet access so far this year for at least 85 families. And considering I love the U.S. Postal Service, I write letters all the time. And I know how much they're as important now as ever, but they've been slowed down, and kids having access to internet is just so invaluable. And whenever any of us is away from internet these days, we're like swimming. We feel like we're afloat on a sea. So them purchasing internet access is really tremendous for those families. And I want to really thank them. We can all thank them by buying a ticket. One ticket costs $100, and there will be a 50/50 raffle drawing for $25,000 on June 2nd. On June 2nd, it will be broadcast live it will be streamed live through Facebook at 5 o'clock. And some of our local favorites like Amr Zahar and Solicitor General Fedwa Hamoud will be on there. So I would ask people to buy a ticket before May 25th if they're able to.
Trustee Lane, where are we buying these tickets from? Put that information out. That's all.
You can get those through the Dearborn Education Foundation.
Okay.
It's online. I think there's a connection on the website. I'm not sure.
Okay. It sounds like Dr. Maleko wants to join.
Yeah, Joanne Harris can get you set up if you need.
Okay, great. Thank you for that information. Yeah. Trustee Petrikov?
I just want to make sure that I have a good understanding, since we're not sure about the startup of the fall school year, but we also know, and I've read in what I really do come to rely upon, your little daily updates about Dr. Patterson coming up with some kind of assessment. We know our students are going to have some kind of loss in learning curve. Can we have some kind of report of how we are going to assess depending on what version of school opening we're going to have? Because if we have to rely upon parents managing the assessment in some fashion or another from home with multiple children and accessing some kind of viable way to know where these students are going to be beginning next year, I'd like to really have a good understanding of how we're going to interpret those kinds of results.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
I have one other question. Dr. Maleko, I notice in looking at the personnel changes attached to the board retirements, there seem to be a particularly high number of leaves of absence lately. I noticed quite a few of them are bilingual. I was just speculating as to whether it might be people who have just decided that some of them are extending out their leave I just wonder whether that might be possibly some of the toll of this pandemic on people, or whether it's just a fluke.
I can, look at that, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next item, Madam Secretary.
Future virtual meeting dates, Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. P12 Policy Committee, 5 p.m. Virtual meeting available live for viewing via YouTube Live and Facebook. Monday, May 18th, 2020, HFC meeting, 7:00 p.m. via video conference. Details to be determined. Check online at hfc.edu. Board meeting schedule. Monday, June 1st, 2020, P12 Finance Committee meeting, 5:30 p.m. Virtual meeting available live for viewing on YouTube and Facebook Live. Finally, Monday, June 8th, 2020, P12 Board of Education meeting, 7 p.m. Virtual meeting available live for viewing via YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and cable channel Comcast Dearborn, channel 20 and WOW 15.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Unless there are any objections, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.